Welcome to the Full Dive Gaming Podcast, bringing you a weekly dive of all the news, discussion, and insights you need for virtual reality gaming. This podcast is brought to you by Asterion Products, a top-selling company on Amazon designing revolutionary products for VR and AR, including the well-known and beautiful Asterion Aura VR stand. I'm Jay Bratt, a VR YouTuber and streamer.
I'm Kaylee Eliza, a VR artist, musician, and VR workshop leader.
And I'm Lipnox, and I do YouTube videos, mostly on side quest games for the Oculus Quest 2.
Our podcast is here to keep you up to date in the VR realm. We answer questions from our communities, followed by some of the latest, greatest VR news, and then we discuss the games, topics, whatever's going on in the VR industry. We'll be talking about some really crazy things that happened in the last few weeks here with me and some other stuff in VR. So hang out for that.
If you haven't seen our YouTube channel, we are all sitting here face to face. So come hang out with us on YouTube, where you can engage with us through the comments and our occasional live streams. Jay, what questions do we have to ask our listener, or what questions do we have from our listeners?
We got an interesting question from Monster Boy. He asks, how do you guys upload your stuff to Spotify? So basically, you have to have a hosting website if you have a podcast, or at least it makes it a lot easier if you do. Ours is captivate.fm if you want to check them out. And basically, all we have to do is upload the episode there, change the description, whatever we want to say, and then it sends it out to Spotify, iTunes, Google, Ghana, Overcast, everywhere. It distributes it for you, and then it even gives you analytics from all of them. It says, hey, iTunes had 100 downloads today, Spotify had 60 downloads, and it tells you all that. So if you're out there and you're looking to get into a podcast, Captivate's what we use. I don't know if it's one of the best, or I don't know any of that, but it works pretty well for us. So hopefully that helps you out, Monster Boy.
That's kind of funny that was one of the questions, because I actually wondered that myself. So thank you for giving insight on that, Jay.
Now you know, if you want to start a podcast on the side, little something. Well,
I just always wondered how the process happened, because it's like, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't know if I want to necessarily go to that extent, but I just thought about it. I guess I'm on Spotify now, so I can tell people I'm on Spotify.
There you go. Yeah, you're on Spotify.
Bucket list.
Kaylee, did your computer get back running? Can you see the next question, or should Lip take us the question?
I can see the next question.
Okay.
So Beef asks, for any PC VR users, what's the best tool add-on you use in your day-to-day? For example, FPS VR.
Yeah, Kaylee, you kind of came up with a description. What was that you said?
Oh, so yeah, I was wondering. I assumed what they were referring to as VR add-ons, but I always thought of them as like a virtual widget.
Yeah.
That was like the best way that I thought to describe it.
I think that's perfect. Lip, you use several, don't you?
Yeah, I actually just started using one recently too, but the main one that I think everyone, if you have Steam VR, needs is the OVR Advanced Play Space Mover thing. So I can just drag myself around my play space, which means if I'm sitting, if I'm standing, I can always fix it. And if games don't support proper movement, I can get around it and go where I need to go, which is a big deal for me in the Steam VR home environments, because I really don't like that you can only teleport in those. And I also use one to get notifications sent from my phone to the VR headset. So if I'm playing VR, I don't have to look outside of VR. And after watching your 10 days in VR, Jay, I noticed that you were having trouble looking at your phone all the time. So maybe you need to get the same application.
That's where I'm terrible at this stuff, because I've heard of all these amazing widgets, as Kaylee so eloquently put it, and I don't use any of them. I always just use the Oculus overlays because they're pretty intuitive and they do what I needed to do. But then when it came to the 10 days in VR, I started using a Valve Index, and I had no idea how to navigate my computer in Steam. So I installed the OVR toolkit, but I barely knew what I was doing. I ended up just eventually using Steam's own stuff. But now that you say that about being able to move around your play space, I'm like, oh man, that would be so nice, because it's always, the play space is never quite right. You always need it to be in a different spot because you're too close to a wall or something. So I'm going to look into that one further and figure that out, because that sounds like a vast improvement over what I'm dealing with at the moment.
I honestly, the play space mover is really easy to set up, and it is that part is totally free. I know the advanced toolkit you have to pay money for, and since Steam incorporated that feature into their Steam thing, I kind of feel like the advanced toolkit's kind of not really important anymore to buy, because Steam just includes it now. But that Steam feature that you were using only got added 2 months ago.
Yeah, I heard that was new. I remember we kind of talked about it, and I was excited to have that, because that was a lot more familiar to me, like the Oculus stuff I was used to. So that was helpful in the whole. I think
that one integrates into your computer anyway, so it runs a lot smoother. So since it's not loading something extra. It's just your computer's already being run through Steam, so it just works.
Okay, that makes sense.
I really need one for when I'm I need some kind of like alarm system for when I'm in Tilburg or something. Because like that would be so useful if there was something that told me to drink water or like get up and eat something or like you loser, get out of VR. Like I really need like, cause I swear like that's my biggest problem is like forgetting the time or like not realizing how long I've been in Tilburg for. And something like that would like pop up or something and tell me the time, like remind me like how long I've been would actually be so useful.
Tell you it's time to stop.
Even like a stopwatch that you have just on your desktop that you just have the one of those things to be able to see the corner in your screen. So when you look to the side, oh, there's your timer that says, oh, you've been in VR for 3 hours. You should probably have a drink of water because it's like 3 hours.
Yeah, that would actually be so good.
Kaylee, what do you think the longest you've ever stayed in on accident was?
Well, it's probably like one of the first times, which is probably 8 hours.
Whew. That's no joke. Well, there's another question, but you kind of heard a teaser just now for what we're going to be talking about in the discussion. I recently spent 10 days straight in virtual reality. And so we'll be having a whole discussion section on all that. So I'm going to leave Crud Nation's question for when we get there. So we'll move into some news and talk about that. First, we got to tell you about our sponsor for today's podcast. You know Asterion Products. You know about their gorgeous Aura VR headset stand. We told you about it before. If you haven't checked it out, if you haven't got one, go check it out. They actually just launched a product called the Origin, which is a VR mat, which helps you stay in your play space and not crash into things. But people liked it so much, it's already sold out. So sorry if you heard us talking about that, you wanted to get one. There should be more coming at some point, but go check them out. And we got reason to celebrate here. This last week, we got a kind of semi-unofficial announcement that the Oculus Quest 2 or the Meta Quest 2, whatever the heck you're calling it these days, hit over 10 million sales units. And then we got an immediate retraction saying, just kidding. So basically, Qualcomm, the provider of the chips that go into the Quest 2, the CEO had spoken out and said, oh, yeah, we've sold like 10 million of these already. And everyone got all excited because that would be a huge milestone for the Quest 2. That would actually mean it had basically sold more headsets than any of the others combined. But then they pretty quickly backed off on that. Oculus keeps these numbers to themselves. What do you two think? Do you think it's possible that 10 million have even sold? Is there that many out there in the world, or is there that many sitting in shelves on stores? What do you think?
I think, honestly, because I, through other consoles, have always looked at these numbers because it's always, how much is this system sold, this much? Because, you can predict how hard a developer or is going to try on games. So when the Wii U's not selling well, can't really expect too much from developers to make games for Wii U, for example. Mm-hmm. And the Oculus Quest 2 is a big deal with developers where we have to convince them to make big games for this. Mm-hmm. And at 10 million units sold sounds pretty good, I think, in developers' ears. But I do think that these numbers are more how many have shipped outside of the factory, not necessarily how many have been purchased or how many are even in stores. And I think in that regard, I think 10 million it's probably pretty close to 10 million, but I think it's shipped, not actual purchased yet.
I think that makes sense. What do you think, Kaylee?
Yeah, I agree. I haven't really thought about it that way, but I guess that makes more sense.
Well, especially from a chip manufacturer being the one to speak. I mean, they have to manufacture those chips to get them to Oculus before those even hit the shelves. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we're close, but we did get a little bit of a peek behind the curtain when the recall happened on the Quest 2. They said that 4 million had sold in the United States. That's how they were basing these numbers on the recall. So we don't know how many have gone to other countries. It does seem like the United States is definitely the front runner of purchasing them. So I would be a little surprised if it was quite at 10 million, but at some point, they've got to give us some numbers. They've got to announce something because we know that the PSVR, the last time they ever told us anything, had sold 5.2 million. That was years ago. And that was the last time we heard numbers from them. I'd like to know that the Quest 2 has passed that mark, and I'm sure it has, but Oculus is so bad about telling us anything. It drives me crazy. So they got to start giving us some numbers. Let us know how it's doing. Maybe they don't want to. I don't know.
we might be able to get ideas from Steam if we can figure out how many users are using Oculus Quest 2 headsets on PC. It might be a good representation of numbers that way, but I do agree. I wish these companies would be more transparent about the actual numbers, because it's like, you know what, even if it's only 8 million, I would be bragging about 8 million. I'd be all over the news being like, I sold 8 million Oculus Quest 2 headsets. VR is here. We have to buy this headset. This is the future. People are making games for this. Because that's the thing. I see all these developers keep making PC VR stuff, and I'm like, the money's on Quest 2. Look how many headsets they've sold.
Yeah, and the hard thing too, we know that Steam VR has the most Quest 2s now over any other headset being used on Steam VR. But I can tell you personally, I have a Quest 2. My neighbor has a Quest 2. My last Mario and Josh and our in-laws, out of all, that's 6 Quest 2s. Only one of them uses it on a PC, and that's me. So there's definitely a lot more than what's being used on PC out in the wild. So hopefully Oculus finally, at least when it hits 10 million, they better tell us something, because we're all sitting here wondering what the heck's going on with the numbers. So come on, Oculus, let us know what's going on. We're going to talk about some stuff in the VR world as far as in my VR world. But first, we got to tell you, you know Asterion products and their high quality VR headset stands. If you want to go to AsterionProducts.com and save $5 off anything on their website, $19.99 or more. Make sure you use that code FULLDIVE. Check out their Aura VR headset stand. Check out their headphone stand that looks just like it. The Vertex. I have them all sitting here next to me, and they're awesome. But both of you know, you popped in some. I recently spent 10 straight days in virtual reality, mostly between an Index and an Oculus Quest 2. The basic rules were everything I did in life had to be in a headset, except for shower breaks, which I did take up to 2 per day, up to 30 minutes for each one, just because I didn't want to take my Quest in the shower and ruin it. But besides that, bathroom breaks, brushing teeth, anything, I'd pop a Quest 2 on and use pass-through for. And it was quite the experience. I learned a lot. So we got a couple questions here from the Discord about it. So I'll answer those real fast. And then from here, we'll just kind of go back and forth. You guys can ask me anything and everything, any curiosity you think people might have out there. But Crud Nation asks, did you ever get any really bad headaches or nausea being in for that long? And I've got to say, I didn't at all. I was really surprised by that, because normally I use a Rift S and I wear contact lenses, and usually my eyes are going nuts even during this podcast 3 hours later. But with the Valve Index and the Quest 2, I was able to adjust the IPD. I was using prescription lenses instead of using my contacts, and I never had an issue with headaches, nausea, any of it. Super shocked about that. Rip also asked, what are some of the best parts about spending 10 days in VR? I think we'll definitely get into those a little bit. I think time flew by. I'm not sure if I would consider that a good or a bad thing, but I was also streaming. And so that really, my time just rocketed by. I couldn't believe how quickly it was over. So you two, you kind of popped in, you were supporting me, helping out. What are some of the questions you had? Kaylee, what are some curiosities that I can answer for you?
Oh, there was a few. So, what I was wondering was like whether, because it was like such a consistent amount of time in the headset, like being in that simulation for that long, I'm wondering like, has it affected like how you view VR now? Like when you go back in now, since having that experience, or do you just see it exactly the same?
Well, the really weird thing, it took about a week before my brain started to have it actually started to recognize things in VR as real, instead of, oh, this is just VR. So it started to get to where people's avatars in VR chat, because their hands were moving like a real humans, because their head was bouncing around stuff, it actually felt like I was looking at people and not avatars, which was the weirdest thing. It took over a week for that to even start to kick in. But even today, I went back to do a stream, and just a normal Beat Saber stream. And I was like, oh, I need to go fix something with the stream. And my instinct was still, oh, you're in VR. You can't get out of VR. Fix it in VR. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm going to pop the headset off. I'm going to run on my computer and fix this really quick, because those 10 days really forced me. Everything had to happen from in a headset, which I'd never done before. And so, yeah, there's been some adjustments. And I will say, though, it still is easier to walk back to your PC and look at it and fix an issue with your stream than try and do it from inside VR. It's not quite to that productivity level yet, at least with the way I'm using my PC, to where I want to get everything done inside of VR. We'll kind of just go back and forth. Lip, what did you want to ask here?
To be perfectly honest, the biggest question I had, you made a whole 20-minute video on. So I will suggest people to go check out that video, but it was about your using the Valve Index after being an Oculus Quest 2 person. Yeah. And that was honestly the biggest thing. I was curious about that. So, I mean, if you want to talk about that quick, or just tell people to go check out that video, that was honestly the big question for me.
Well, that was funny, because someone else commented. They were like, this is the first time I've ever seen a Quest 2 user review the Index. It's always the other way around. And so I think, as someone who's been in the Quest 2 for a long time, I had some some expectations of the Index that surprised me, because I thought the Index was going to have, super crisp and clear visuals, and they're good, but there's a lot of screen door effect compared to a Quest 2. And I thought that the finger tracking on the Index controllers, having all your fingers being tracked to be able to move, I thought that was going to be really nice and really good. But if you're used to playing on a Quest 2 with actual hand tracking, it's night and day different. Yes, you can make some gestures and move your fingers and it shows them, but it's not, if I'm on a Quest 2, I can tap each finger to each finger slowly and I can watch the intricacies of my hand moving in Quest 2 hand tracking. The Index doesn't feel like that. You put your finger on the controller and then you see your virtual finger drop, or you take it off and then you see your virtual finger go up, but it's never exactly where your finger is. I was really surprised by that. But overall, the Index is still a solid headset. It's really good. The only thing that kept me from recommending it in the end is just it's so much money right now and there's so much on the horizon for the full kit. But I feel like if you've been a longtime Quest 2 user, you're not going to be as overwhelmed by the Index as if you were maybe using a Quest 1 or maybe using a PSVR. You're going to be blown away getting into an Index. But a Quest 2 has so many good things about it that there's still, the Index is better in a lot of ways, but those little things that the Quest 2 does better shine through when you're trying the Index. And for a third of the price, it definitely is like, oh, wow, I'm glad I have the Quest 2. Kaylee, what else? You said you had a couple here.
So for falling asleep, I'm wondering how on earth did you have to sleep in a certain way, and the process of falling asleep, was that not what were you seeing in the headset?
So sleeping was one of the worst parts about the whole experience. So I had a Quest 2 because it was wireless. I was like, okay, we're going to try some different head straps. We're going to try and find a good way to sleep. I was sleeping on an airbed because I was sleeping in my studio, not my usual bedroom. And the first night I tried to use the Quest 2 stock strap because it's elastic. I thought it wouldn't push on my head weird or anything. The problem was not only did you now have the weight of the headset on your face, you had the elastic pulling it further into your face. So it hurt. I would put on Netflix and I just binge watch some Netflix for an hour or two until my brain was so tired it couldn't stay awake anymore and would just fall asleep. But it was terrible that first night. I'd wake up all times of the night with this thing on my face. And you wake up, even something as simple as going to the bathroom in the middle of the night, you wake up with a headset on your face, you have to get it into pass-through mode, and pass-through mode's really bright in the middle of the night when you're trying to get to the bathroom looking through pass-through. And so it kind of wakes you back up. And so I don't think I ever got a great night's sleep, but I think by night 3, I finally figured it out. I actually used the Kiwi Elite strap because it has rigid arms on the side. And so when you lay back and your head pushes on the pillow, those arms actually push some of that weight off your face, which made a big difference. And I used like a neck pillow you use on an airplane. I use that because it has that big hole in the middle, and I would rest the whole back of my head and that big head strap that's sticking out the back in that hole. And then I'd sleep on my back. I did turn on my side sometimes during the night. It wasn't the most comfortable thing, but by night 3 or 4, I got pretty used to that and it was bearable. I would not want to do it again, but it was bearable to make it through the 10 days.
It's probably good that you picked the...
at all? Sorry.
I did. I was surprised that I did. And I was surprised they didn't have anything to do with VR. I had a dream that I was hanging out at my neighbor's place. These two guys that live next door, we've been hanging out with them a lot and showing them VR stuff. And I had a dream that I was at their place and it was this huge house. It wasn't it didn't look right, but you know how in dreams you always accept your surroundings as reality, even though this isn't their house. This isn't what it looks like. And I had some other dreams, but nothing had anything to do with VR specifically, which I was shocked about.
Or not even a simulated type style or anything,
Nothing.
Visual aesthetic.
It seemed like normal dreams, just normal. I have weird dreams as it is, but it seemed like nothing out of the ordinary from it.
Yeah.
I did feel like I dreamt less, but I think that was because I never got really good deep sleep having the headset on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Lip, you had a question there.
I was just gonna say that it is probably good that you picked the Kiwi one. Because I tried to break that head strap, and there's no way that you can break that head strap unless you're using a knife or some sort of sharp object. So if you're turning around while you're sleeping, twisting the back of your head, it's I feel like the Elite strap, I'd be like, this thing is gonna break as I'm sleeping. But I just wanted to comment because I just feel like the Kiwi was the perfect choice for that sleeping plan.
It was. I really like the Bobo VR. That's what I usually use all the time, but I was like, the Bobo VR bends in the middle. It's big. It's bulky. I was like, there's no way I'm going to get comfortable trying to sleep in this thing. And so that was where the Kiwi one was finally I think this one's the smartest decision because of those rigid arms on the side. That really helped take that weight off my face. One night I did have an issue where the whole thing slipped off for about 40 minutes. My eyes were closed. I was asleep the whole time. So I was like, well, I don't think that's a big deal if that happened, because I still wasn't out of VR. But the next night I was like, well, maybe I'll try adding a chin strap to this thing to like make sure it stays on. Worst mistake ever. I woke up in the night in a full-on panic thinking it was choking me to death. So
Yeah.
that was not good. I woke up freaking out. I thought I was getting choked. And I immediately ripped that chin strap off, and I was like, I am not wearing a chin strap again.
That sounds awful. Like you're being taken hostage in the middle of the night.
It was awful. And I was like, okay, one takeaway from this, VR is not ready to be slept in yet. There's actually someone making a headset right now that they say is specifically for that, but we're not there yet. A Quest 2 is a terrible headset to sleep in.
I think that headset it's set to use like Neuralink type of things. So I'm not too sure if that's going to be actually like playing VR games like we're playing now, so much as it's like something that reads your brain signals and gives you a visual experience based on that.
Oh yeah, I'm curious about that headset, because that sounds really interesting when you say that. But
I keep seeing the pictures of it, but like if you're sleeping and you're intended to be sleeping while you're in it, then you're not moving at all. So if you're not moving, then it's just a screen floating in front of you. It's not. I don't know if it's really like if you can't turn at all and you're just sitting there like lying back. Does that still really count in the same sense?
Well, that was what was interesting too, because I had to leave some lights on so the Quest 2 would continue to track. And there is a way going to developer tools and disable that. But I just kept thinking, man, a Vive Flow, this is the one purpose that it would have been worth getting a Vive Flow for, because it's so minimal. But the problem is, it's $500 for a Vive Flow. And you have to have a battery pack or something plugged into it. So I'm still risking strangling myself with a wire in the night, which was what I was trying to avoid all along. But yeah, sleeping, eating, I wanted to get out and eat something without having to look through a headset, and being in my own bed were like the three things I was really looking forward to by the end of it.
Yeah, well, I watched you try to eat the apples with peanut butter, and it definitely looked like it was not an enjoyable experience, to the point where you just almost didn't even want to eat the apples.
I know Nat was trying to get me to eat the apples, and I was giving up, because the problem is apples, I love apples and peanut butter, but apples are a wet food. They have moisture inside of them that leaches out. So when you try and scoop peanut butter, when you can't see, it doesn't stick to the apple, you don't realize, And so I kept dropping peanut butter all over myself, trying to get it on the freaking apple. No, if you were doing anything dry, crackers and peanut butter would have been fine, but an apple has that slick moisture, and it just kept throwing the peanut butter everywhere, and that was just awful.
Yeah, I think I watched you drop some peanut butter, actually.
Yep, I'm sure you did. People were there for all of it. And that was another thing that was different about this. This wasn't just 10 days in VR. I was streaming every second of my life for 10 straight days, which was, a whole different experience.
Wait, so did you turn the live stream off once?
The live stream, I had to stop it every 12 hours, but it was only for minutes, just because YouTube won't save it beyond 12 hours. So every 12 hours, I'd restart it. And then there was one issue where one night it died in the night, and I didn't know it did. So we lost, I think, about 6 hours of footage there, footage of me just sleeping. But yeah, anytime there was an issue with the stream or it died or anything, I would, as quickly as I could, restart it. But basically, minus those 6 hours, virtually the whole time is on the channel now for people to go see, more as proof than anything else that we really did it.
I thought of a question.
Yeah.
So the Quest power button is on the side of the controller, or sorry, the headset. Did you ever turn over and accidentally turn the headset off while you were sleeping?
I don't know if I did, because what I would do is I had to tap the button, to go into sleep mode, at least at some point, because it doesn't have enough battery to last all night. So like just as I was drifting off, or even after I had drifted off, it would either shut off, or I would tap the button to shut it off in the night. But I noticed, so this is going to sound crazy and weird, but the thing that I binge watched during this was The Walking Dead. I've watched the show before, but I watched it from the beginning. And so I would wake up, I'd go to bed the next night and go to resume it. And it would be like 2 episodes further than where I'd fallen asleep the night before. So I'd like keep rewinding back and finding the spot, because I would fall asleep somehow with it still playing. And that probably seems like the worst thing to go to sleep to, but I knew the show, and I was like, I'll just have this show on every night when I go to sleep. I think I got through like 2, almost 3 seasons of it during this whole 10 days.
So, but you had the battery bank attached to the Quest 2. Was that just in general, just doing that, or so I guess you didn't really have the headset on for a lot of the period of time that it was like you weren't like, it wasn't like actively like the lights in your eye in your eyes while you were sleeping.
Yeah, it wasn't blinding me all night while I was sleeping, because at some point it would stop. The battery bank that was sitting next to me, I usually had plugged into my phone. because it
Oh.
got to a point after the stream died that I could have the stream running on my phone. And then if I woke up during the night and I noticed the music wasn't playing, I would know something had gone wrong with the stream. Or actually at one point, one night, because the music on the stream was set to like 50%. So, it was relaxing. It wasn't real loud. And so my phone was turned all the way up to be able to hear that music in the bed. And one night the stream died, and all of a sudden my YouTube channel was like, oh, well, you're done watching the stream. Let's switch to a virtual reality Oasis video. And I hear Mike just screaming in my ear while I'm asleep. But it woke me up. It got me to go fix the stream really fast. But it was shocking. You're sleeping, and then all of a sudden this really loud thing is in your ear. So yeah, there was a lot more factors about keeping the stream going and all that were difficult, and more difficult than the actual just being in VR. If I had just been in VR and left a camera, running up in the corner of the room, that would have been a cinch to do 10 days. But the most challenges came from keeping engaged with the stream, dealing with stream problems and all those things. 10 days in VR isn't that hard though, without streaming at all. Shockingly. That was a big learning to me, because I thought it would be awful.
So how many days has it been since you've been out of VR now?
So it would have been last Saturday. So this is day 8 outside of VR.
So are you having almost like a withdrawal because you spent so much time in VR that it was like your routine, that now you're missing it almost, that you're like, I kind of want to go back in there and live in VR again?
Here's the really weird thing about it. So the first night out, I went upstairs and I went to my normal bed with my wife, and I was laying there and I was like, you know what? I don't feel like it's been almost 2 weeks since I've been in this bed. My brain could not catalog the stream as what it was. It literally felt like I had been away for one night, and I could not conceptualize that it had been that much time since I'd been in my own bed. And even now, when I try and think back to the stream, I cannot tell you what day we played Rec Room, or what day we played Pavlov, or what day I played Pavlov, the new mode, all these different things I did. It feels like it was one long day. I don't know if that's because I was constantly in VR. I had no day-night cycles. I don't know if that was because I didn't get good sleep, but it never ever, I still can't break it down. And that's the weirdest thing about the whole experience that I'm struggling with now.
I swear that's to do with your lack of exposure to the daylight and that whole time system, because I've had the exact same thing when I had COVID, and every time I woke up it was dark. I thought I was at it for over a week, and I thought it'd been my brain couldn't remember when I'd last watched a certain movie and stuff like that. I literally thought everything was happening in one day. So I completely I understand that feeling, and I swear it must be to do with, and for me that was definitely because I wasn't seeing daylight, and it was throwing off that whole subconscious understanding of that of time. And that's so fascinating that you experienced that, having been in the headset that whole time as well.
We rely on more outside factors to track time than we think we do. I was actually talking with Lee from Mysterion, who's an amazing person, great supporter of the podcast here. And he was saying that astronauts, they have day-night cycle stuff to simulate when they're away from the light to help them, stay sane and feel good. So there's definitely a degree of getting away from that. I didn't realize I was so dependent on that, because I still cannot fathom that it was 10 straight days, even though it was, because I can't separate anything out by day. It just feels like literally it was this one long day that I did all these things, and it makes you realize time is a bit more of a construct than we might think it is. So I'm lost on that one.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I think back to about this would be probably 12 years ago, back on PlayStation Home, which was a very similar thing to VR chat that was on the PlayStation 3 10, 15 years ago. But I know some of the times when I would play that, time would just disappear, and you're staring at the screen. And that's the thing, is in the game, when it's always light outside, but you're having social conversations that are, feeling like you're connecting with real people, you do have that huge disconnect. And I, I'm thinking to myself now, I'm like, you know what? I almost want to change the brightness settings on my headset depending on the time of day, just to kind of program that in my head better.
Try and create some sort of day-night cycle. I absolutely agree.
It might work.
Yeah. Well, this experience taught me the one thing that I went into thinking, this, preconceived notion, whatever you want to call it. I thought that one, it probably wasn't even possible. Like, I didn't tell people I was going to do this. I told people that we hit 10K. We're going to do 10 days of celebration streams in a row. I didn't tell them it was going to be all day and all night. I didn't tell it was going to be VR because I honestly thought what was going to happen day one. I was going to get 6 hours in. I was going to want to die and I was just going to quit and save face by not having told people I'm going to do this and fail. The biggest surprise to me was how easy it was to just live like this. Because, if you were normally going to say, oh, I'm going to start living in the metaverse, I'm going to wake up every day, I'm going to work out in VR, I'm going to socialize in VR, I'm going to play games in VR, and then I'm going to do my actual work, and then I'm going to go to bed. That doesn't mean you're going to go to the bathroom in VR. That doesn't mean you're going to sleep in VR. But you could wake up at 8 a.m. and spend 12 hours in VR and go to bed and live your life like this. And it's actually completely possible right now from what I saw. I had no physical problems. I am going to the eye doctor tomorrow just to make sure that everything's still good, but my eyes feel great. My body felt great. I never had neck aches, strangely. I actually had less neck pain than I normally do. I think my neck got stronger having something hanging on it all the time. And so I was totally shocked. I did not think it would be so easy as it was. So that, I don't know if that changes your views about like where we are in VR and stuff, but I really thought we weren't at a point where we were ready for a metaverse where people live in, because I didn't think the technology was ready. And this was a big eye opener to me.
For me, I honestly, when I saw that thing, I was like, you know what? I think the issue for me would be having to spend 10 days being on camera, because you have to, have a presentation on camera. And sometimes I'm just like, I just want to relax, I want to chat with my friends. I don't want, to be on, on video all the time. And that would be the hardest part for me, is doing 10 days of that part. I think the VR thing, if there was an excuse to do it, I think I could pull it off.
Yeah. What do you think, Kaylee?
I'm wondering,
not to being on stream.
Well, I was about to ask, do you recommend like that? Maybe not 10 days. Maybe I don't know if I could do 10 days, but like, do you think it would be like an insightful experience for like us, like who are already using VR all the time? Like, do you think like you gained like something or any sort of insight that you think that we could benefit from by doing that? Like even as a fun thing to do, even if it was just like cool or interesting, like what would you recommend it?
I would say first I'm going to go to the eye doctor tomorrow. Let me see how that goes.
Okay.
let me confirm that no damage was done. Mm-hmm. But I would say if you're really into VR and you're curious about this, you don't have to do a week. You don't have to do all that. But even just spend a day in it and see what it's like. Try doing your normal work that you would do with a monitor. I mean, I could put up 6 monitors if I wanted to in front of me and work, in this productive way. Try socializing, try all these things and see, because it definitely showed me we're a lot closer to this idea of a metaverse. And that's even a funny thing they're saying that, because I mean, Rec Room is a metaverse. VR chat is a metaverse, but they're saying the metaverse, like it's going to be this big, one thing like the internet. But it definitely showed me like, this is not impossible. And it made me really realize, because I met a guy who's just this super awesome guy, super sociable. And then he told me he's extremely agoraphobic. Like, he cannot leave his house without having extreme anxiety, extreme trouble. But yet in VR, you would have never guessed it, ever. Wow. So there are people out there that could live a much more fulfilling life with VR than they ever could have before, because it opens up that ability for them, and they could do it 12 hours a day, I believe, after this experience, without having any ramifications from it. So yeah, I would say there is a lot to learn. There is a lot you'll find out. And there is, not only that, there's those fun, weird moments. If you know what I'm talking about in VR, when you first get into VR and you lose yourself, you lose the moment, and you try to grab something, you try to lean on something, and you go, oh my gosh, that wasn't real. I've been in VR for like 6 years now, so I don't have that happen much. After that period of those like 7 days of adjustment, I started having weird things happen again, which is kind of exciting to us.
Oh, so you got you got the novelty back.
Yeah, some of it back. So a lot of my time I spent here at the desk when I wasn't playing games, and I had a virtual monitor up to see chat in front of me in the Steam VR home. And at one point I was like, okay, we're going to play Beat Saber now. And in the Steam VR home behind me was a panel of recently opened games. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to use your controller, turn around and click on one of them from there. I tried to stand up and walk over and touch the wall, And I was like, wait a second. Like right as I got 2 steps, I was like, what am I doing right now? But in my mind, that had become a real room around me. And it was like, okay,
Yeah.
I just got to go over to the wall and click on Beat Saber. It wasn't a question of, oh, I need to use my controller. So I started to get some of that back the further in I went. And that was really
That's
cool because as
that is
weird as it
cool.
sounds. Yeah.
Because that's kind of what we all. I feel like that's what like we all wish that we could relive that like that kind of feeling
Yep.
of like, oh, I can't touch it. Like because now when I see people do it, I'm like, of course you can't touch it. Like what are you on about? But like at the time, I completely remember. Like I remember that feeling, and I always want it back. Like that's so
Yep.
cool that you got to like relive it a little bit.
Yeah, it takes a while. It depends on how long you've been in VR, I
Yeah.
think. But like I said, it wasn't for 7 days before I started to have any weird stuff happen
Yeah.
like that, where I was like, whoa, whoa. It was like my brain started to finally, after a week, be like, okay, this is our new reality. We're going to start
Yeah.
assuming as such. So that was really big.
Wow. You've inspired me. I like really want to try 24 hours now.
If you try it, I would say 24 hours is a little tricky because, like, are you going to sleep or not is the question. If you're someone who
I
stays
probably
up,
wouldn't stream. Like I do. Like I could like pull an all nighter rather than. I'd be like worse sleeping for a couple of hours than not at all. So I feel like
then just don't.
I'd be interested as well. You know, like well, it happens to me a lot. Like if I've not slept for 24 hours, I've done it like recently actually. Like literally not last night, the night before. I didn't sleep. I didn't sleep at all, and you know that like you kind of go a little bit delirious towards the end, like, and then you perk up again. Well, in my experience, I kind of have this moment of like I kind of go a bit crazy, and it, like what I'm saying doesn't make sense, or like my like perspective on like my perception of things is like really warped, and I would be so interested in seeing how like I would respond, like having that feeling, but also in virtual reality and like being in a virtual application at the same time as that experience happening. That like delirious feeling of like when you haven't slept at all. Like I'd love to just experience. Like that sounds so damaging, but like I would be so fascinated to see how that would pan out. But like recording that experience as well. Like I just wonder what that would be like with no sleep.
If you want to do it, I'd say go for it. That was one thing. I'm not someone who ever does that. I never stay up all night. I'm usually in bed by midnight at the latest. I get 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night. But the last night in this, I hadn't started the 10K project that I wanted to do. Basically, I went in Minecraft and made signs of all the names of all of our subscribers in this world. And I hadn't started it. And it took so long that I ended up staying up all night. I think Lipnox even gave me a donation near the end just to help me push through and finish it. I ended up staying up till like after 8 a.m., which I never do that. And that was like, okay, that was the only thing that made the last day hard on me was because I didn't sleep at all. But every night before I'd had, you know, a pretty full night's sleep. It wasn't great sleep, but I'd slept. And then that last night I was like, because I was supposed to be doing this all week and I kept procrastinating because I was playing games with people. I was talking to people in chat. I was having fun. And then I did that. That was awful just because I never stay up that late. But I definitely had that experience. There was a point at the end where I was dead tired and I still had like 2 hours of work and I felt awful. And then finally I got to like that last half hour and I was like, okay, I'm feeling good again. I'm feeling awake again. I can power through this. But then I fell asleep for like 3 hours because I was supposed to get out at noon that day. I only slept for like 3 hours, got back up and got ready for the finale. And it was like, oh, that was the one thing that actually really felt awful for me was just that. And it wasn't because it was VR, it's because I stayed up all night, which I never do. So yeah.
Well, not to mention your diet the night before.
Oh gosh, yeah. I guessed it on this podcast that I've been on before, but they're doing this weird new thing where if you like, they'll have challenges, and if you get something wrong or something, you have to eat these disgusting jelly beans, these Bean Boozled jelly beans that like you have a chance of it being good or bad. You don't know when you eat it. And then they also wanted us to have these Burger King ghost pepper chicken nuggets as another kind of punishment thing. So I just ate all this horrible crap that last night and then stayed up all night. That was probably the worst part of it all was that last long stretch of no sleep with that gross food. And just, yeah, I just suddenly I was glad it was day 10. Because if I'd done that on day 2 or 3, that might have messed the whole thing up for me.
That's the one thing I will say with the plan is that if you're doing it for your own recreation, I feel like taking the headset off to eat, to go to the bathroom, and to sleep, I feel like you don't need to be wearing a headset for those situations to get the full experience still, at least the full good experience. But I do think that, you know, if you wake up and immediately put that headset on, and for the most part you're on it all day, and you start doing that for a while, your brain is going to just think it's real life.
Yeah. At some point it's going to click and it's going to go, this is just our reality. This is what we do. Well, do you guys have any other last questions before we wrap up here?
I think you covered everything. We had a good chat about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you're out there and you're listening right now and you're like, man, I have questions, come join our Discord server. We're on there, all of us. We're there. I'm there pretty much all the time. I'm always hopping in saying hey to anybody who pops in, has questions about this. And a lot of the questions you hear on the podcast every single time are from our Discord community. If you really want to take it to the next level, you can go on Patreon, support us there. We really appreciate those who are doing it. It goes towards our operating costs. And even as it stands now, I think Patreon covers about half of the operating costs, which is really amazing. If you're listening and you haven't ever seen our faces, come over to YouTube, check us out there, or vice versa. If you watch us on YouTube, but you're like, oh, I don't get to finish the episodes, I don't have time, take us on any audio platform you can think of because we are on it. And if we're not, come tell us on Discord and we'll get on it. But we want to say thank you so much for listening. And when it comes to VR, what do they got to do?
Dive on
Dive on in.
Dive on in.